Hi and welcome to another episode of Cafe Chronicles. Steve here. Thanks for tuning in. I wanted to take you guys on the next step of our journey. Today what we're going to be looking at is one, making sure that the KZ750 is running well. We want to make sure that the engine's in good shape before we go on to making the bike look nice and doing sort of all the aesthetic things. We want to make sure that the powerhouse is good. We want to make sure that we're getting spark, that we've got good compression and everything's kind of doing what it should be. Also, we'll take a little look at achieving how we're going to make the bike look the way Dan would like it to look and how to do that on a budget. By getting access to the bike, we're going to take the rear end off the bike here a little bit too, just so that we can see the lines in the bike. That'll become important a little bit later. But really what we're trying to do is gain a good understanding of really how the bike's running. Okay, so what we're doing here is a compression test. So here you see this little pressure gauge that I'm using. It's specifically for checking the pressure within the engine. So what I do is I screw this little gauge down and into where the spark plug goes into the cylinder. And then we just crank over the bike a few times. We don't actually start the bike. We literally just turn it over without actually engaging and fully starting the engine. This allows us to build up pressure in the cylinder head, and then what we're trying to do here is we're trying to make sure that the pressure that we're reading is high enough to achieve the level of combustion that we need in that cylinder. You know, Dan and I don't make that decision on what that is. The engineers at Kawasaki did that back in 1980 when they made this bike. So what we do is we just go online to the service manual for the KZ750, we figure out what the PSI should be in each cylinder, and then we check each cylinder one by one to make sure that we're getting the right compression. The great thing is that in all of these cylinders we got really great compression, and the second thing was that not only did it build up to the pressure we needed, but it held that pressure. And that shows us that the valves are seated nicely and there's nothing leaking beyond them. Also, it shows us that the rings on the pistons are in really good condition too, and they're holding pressure, which is exactly what we need. That tells us that, you know, it's looking good. We've also checked for spark in each one of the cylinders to ensure that we're going to get combustion in each one of those as well.
Now that it's flooded.
That's going to be nice, dude. It's going to be awesome. It's a result. You happy?
Yeah.
You may have noticed there that we were talking about the smell, the stink. The bike was running very, very rich. We actually had set the gas tank to prime because the way the carbs are set up in this bike, they need to put a vacuum hose from the carb over to the gas tank, and we didn't have that set up. So there's a setting on the Kawasaki tank where you can set it to prime, and it just basically dumps fuel in there, makes it nice and rich, which is good for running a cold bike, but not good when you want to save the environment. So here at this stage, we're starting to really look at the lines of the bike. We're starting to consider, how we want the flow of the bike. You may see us here on our phones a little bit, looking at the Pinterest board and seeing kind of the look, the end goal that Dan was looking for. We're considering how the tank is going to mount, what position it's going to be at, and we're considering how we're going to make the seat fit in the existing sort of lines that the frame is giving us. It's important to do this and to really take your time. The worst possible thing that we could do at this point would be to just strip the bike apart completely and start trying to cut pieces of the frame apart. We really need to take our time at this point and figure out how we want the whole bike to look, from the exhaust system through to the stance of the bike where it's going to stand. We also need to think about how we're going to keep that sort of cafe line flow at the rear of the bike. And it's really important to do all of this now at this stage while the bike is put together, so that we can have a good idea of sort of the things, the modifications that we need to make to major parts of the bike. Here is a bit of a Harry Potter moment. Not sure what I'm doing with a brush, but hey, I think I'm trying to show off how we're going to maintain that line, and maybe the only tool I had at hand was a sweeping brush, but hey, Harry Potter would be proud. Here what I've done is I've just kind of put the seat off the CB750, my CB750, onto the bike, just to kind of see where it lands up, where it ends. Dan had wanted to maybe try leaving on the stock foot pegs, and I was trying to show him that maybe it might be a good idea to put some rear sets on, and because we have a nice little setup on the KZ750, I think that'll be easy to actually use the rear foot pegs. So here I'm showing Dan what a fat dude on a KZ750 looks like, just to illustrate the difference in the stance once the clip-ons are on, how your knees have to tuck up higher the existing location. Alright, so you can see here we're trying to take a look and kind of figure out what we're going to do with the bike. We're trying to look at the lines to see kind of really how we can keep that kind of cafe and brat style that Dan's interested in keeping. So this is a really, really rough composite that I just literally cut around this bike really quick, so my apologies. It's as rough as a bear's backside, as they say, but I just kind of wanted to show you guys what it potentially looks like. Here you kind of see the back end is stripped apart, and I just kind of took a quick photograph just so that I can kind of illustrate to you guys what the idea is and what we're thinking about doing. First off, we're going to cut the rear end of the bike off here. With some of the bikes that Dan had been looking at online, it seemed like it kind of up just above the axle is where the end of the hoop kind of came to, so that's kind of what we tried to kind of aim for. So we'll weld in the hoop. We're going to put in sort of a flat hoop. We're going to then try and keep the line, the cafe line, with the top of the seat, the brat line I should say, with the top of the seat, and the bottom of the seat will sort of follow this little kind of up sweep here in the frame. So what we'll end up probably doing is we'll build a little bit of a pan that will sit into this. What we might do then is maybe with the likes of like a board, like a stiffened board, or else we'll make up a little bit of a mold with some fiberglass or something like that, and then on top of that then we'll put our foam, and then we'll cut our foam and shape it so that we get it down to what we need, attach it all together, and we'll have a go at maybe making our own sort of covering for it as well, and stitching it to it and stapling it. That pan, that seat pan or whatever we're going to call it, it's going to basically be able to hinge onto the bike and clip in, clip out, and we're going to try and use one of the seat latch or locking mechanism that was already on the bike. Budget build, we want to try and do it on a bit of a budget, but once we get to that stage, then we can have a look at making it look nice and sexy after that. So if you haven't seen the first episode, the kickoff episode, please go back and check it out. In there we mention a list, and it's a list of all the things we're going to buy for the bike. Please go in, have a look at that list. The link is in the description. If there's anything on there that you think we shouldn't buy that's a piece of junk, please let us know. It'll save us some time and some money. Just add it in the comments. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to like and don't forget to subscribe. Take care, stay safe.